Okay, now item 5C is discussion of windshield building on Main Street. I'm not certain who's in charge of this discussion.
Sure, I'll take the lead on this. I wanted to report to the council that, as they may remember, there was an application made to Keep Iowa Beautiful for $15,000. This was the first year that Keep Iowa Beautiful was running a grant opportunity for demolition funds. Demolition, of course, was not the only aspect of what grant money was available. They received $1.3 million worth of applications, over 143 of those applications, and in the end approved 3 demolition applications. We were not one of the 3 demolition applications approved. Each of those 3 demolition applications was funded at a $6,500 level, not at the $15,000 max level. While it is disappointing not to obtain that fund opportunity, there is another application process in January for the next cycle period. And now we have some history about the situation. I've also spoke with the Keep Iowa Beautiful people a little bit to learn exactly what they were looking for in the grants. As Darren can probably tell most of us when it comes to grant process, understanding the history of the grant process is very important. And there was no history in this process. So now we can kind of assume that $6,500 is the max amount that we might be able to obtain in future years for that purpose. On the other side, I have met with representatives from SDC. In fact, Bill and I met with representatives from the SDC. We discussed the roles and goals as far as the windshield parking went. One of the ideas that came out of the meeting that it would be a good idea to contact some of the stakeholders, and by the stakeholders I would mean the adjacent property owners and the current property owner, and of course possibly even the county, considering the tax estate of the property, to discuss if or any of their involvement would be involved in the actual resolution of the issue. So that's what came out of the SDC meeting. It was more than anything else. One of the things that came out that was not a resolved issue was about the role of ownership in the process. One of the things that has been brought to my attention is applying for money from the Brownsfield, the Iowa Brownsfield group. There is funds available in the Brownsfield group. They will pay up to half of the cost for asbestos cleanup. In this project, that would run roughly about $3,500. However, one of the requirements for applying for that money is it has to be applied for by the city, and the city has to be the actual obtainer of the property. That, of course, has been, I know, somewhat of a contested issue among council members. So that's why I wanted the council to at least discuss this item a little bit and kind of hash out what our options are and what our role is going to be. Because another point was brought out during the SDC meeting is inevitably, if, for instance, it still is the goal of this, of the original intent to turn this into a green space or to a park area, the discussion needs to be had as far as who's going to maintain the property in the future. And maybe it is a scenario where even if we aren't the property holders in the intermediate of the process of dealing with the property, if it is in fact the intent of the council to be the responsible maintainer of the property thereafter, we may inevitably end up being the property holder, the deed holder in the end. I'm just talking through some scenarios here for the council. I'd like to hear some thoughts.
Well, I'm not so sure that I want to be involved with ownership of that property. Because the liability aspect of it, we don't know where it's going to start and stop. For me personally.
I would remind you that you agreed to, as a council, to pay for some fees for an engineer,
yes.
A structural engineer.
Yes,
You
that
agreed
doesn't
to
mean
that.
we have to own it. Though.
No, but I think, you know, don't get the cart before the horse before you have information on it. I mean, I think
Well,
there's
that's
a
fine.
lot
We
of
can pay-
work
yeah.
being done, you know?
I agree with that part, but just because we voted to have a structural engineer look at it,
Right.
pick up the tab for that, does not automatically assume, for my part, that we're gonna assume ownership of
I
that property.
understand that. I'm not saying that it does. I'm just saying that, you know, there's a lot of information out on this that isn't known yet.
Let me speak on that front a little bit. I actually intended to have a contract before you tonight for the hiring of an engineer. However, a second party has come into my attention right at the end of last week that was interested in it that had not contacted me previously. And I am discussing with them the prospects that they might be an alternative choice to provide the engineering services. So before the next council meeting, I will discuss that and hopefully have one of the two before you in the form of an agreement to hire.
Okay, just as a side here for this engineer, I think you want to get a time, okay, because don't know who's going to wind up owning that property, we don't know when that's going to happen. If we determine that we're going to pay and hire the structural engineer, and nothing happens for a year, is that engineer's response? How long is that engineer's
It's a good point, Nick, because
estimate what, you know, it's going to take without having to come back in and redo it? So you may want to ask each one, 2, 3, 4, however many parties you're looking at, what's the time allotment that is good for?
Well, I think the structural engineer, Jeremy, correct me if I'm wrong, but they'll look at what needs to be done, and they may put an estimate on it, but the estimate is,
Just an
you
estimate.
can put down an estimate as of now. And
the scope of the work
scope of the work, what you need.
the scope of the work I have requested is that they come in, they do any testing that's necessary, they do any evaluation that's necessary of the property, and that they provide us a recommendation on a course of action. Secondly, I have also asked for an estimated cost to be present during the demolition process, so that they can evaluate it during that time to make sure that nothing changes during the actual demolition, the state of demolition.
How does the adjoining property owners feel? Are they at all open to possibly?
I think, actually, the action item out of the meeting with us was that Steve, and I didn't know Steve Irwin was not going to stick around. I don't think he spoke with them yet.
Okay.
But I do know that he took on the action item of talking to the addressee. Wasn't that correct, Bill? That Steve Irwin was going to take on the action. The representatives from SDC, I should make clear, were Steve Irwin and Mike Ketchum that we met with.
Well, without having, that's where I stand on this. You know, I feel the city just can't pick up this tab. There's other buildings that need to be fixed, there's other buildings that are gonna need attention. We can't stick everything into one building, in one property. I mean, we have other buildings here that are gonna need attention. I think, me personally, you know, I was, okay, we'll help hire we'll pay for the engineer or whatever, but I think there's gotta be some other funds coming in to take care of it. That's my personal opinion.
Wait to see what the engineer says. Take one step at a time.
I appreciate your comments.
Okay, thank you.